Where Am I is recorded and produced on the unceded lands of the Gadigal and Wongal people. We acknowledge the traditional owners and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Three unique voices: Lima, living life blind; Jamal, navigating the world with vision impairment; and me, Ellie, limited mobility and always in need of a 5-minute rest. This is Where Am I? A podcast offering real insights into living with disability and accessibility in our communities.
Where am I?
We are here in Martin Place celebrating International Guide Dogs Day.
Yes, and we're going to watch some puppies play. There are about 1,500 active dogs in Australia, so that's what we're celebrating today. I did find this online, so they do have a YouTube channel, so check it out.
Have you ever had a guide dog, Lima?
No, never had a guide dog. Just different kind of dogs.
And would you like to have a guide dog one day, or is it something that you'd like to try?
You know, I wouldn't mind having one. A bit complicated in my area.
Well, what stopped you from having a guide dog?
Just that, trying to get out of my area, and no taxis or Ubers seem to want to take them, which really annoys me.
What's one thing people might not realise about using a guide dog or a cane?
You probably don't want to grab the dog or the cane, which some people do, and say, "Can I assist?" And you're like, that's not how you assist.
Yep. How can people assist?
They can ask, maybe a light tap on the shoulder. Sometimes it's hard because I don't know if someone's talking to me half the time. Like, hey, you asking me the question, or it depends.
What message would you want to share with other blind or low vision people thinking about reaching out for support and using a guide dog or another aid?
Yes, it's worth it. It's worth it. Everything's worth a go. It's basically freedom, independence. You know, got to do it. I've got Ellie today, so.
What helps with your independence?
I suppose, transport. Support work, definitely support work. And just knowing the area, knowing how to get around. It helps to make friends with, your local shop. Say, for example, like chemist, takeaway, it makes things easier. Yeah, so when you go to your butcher, they know that you can't really see, and they're like, oh, okay, do you want the usual or do you want something else?
How important is it to be able to have your independence, Lima?
Very. For everybody, I guess. It's just to even get out and walk around, even just exercise, to be honest. Like, to get out of the house or, socialise, it's very important.
Hi everyone, my name's Karlee. I live with blindness and I have a yellow guide dog called Isla, and we're here today to really talk about access refusals and really try and break down those barriers.
Yeah, my name's Ryan Jones. I'm a guide dog mobility instructor with Guide Dogs New South Wales ACT.
Yeah, it's really great to be at the pop-up. We're at International Guide Dogs Day. This is what we're celebrating today. So what are we doing today? What are we here for?
We're here today to really recognise the role that guide dogs play in the lives of people who live with low vision and blindness and celebrate that. We're also here today to put a bit of a spotlight on, we like a different theme each year to sort of highlight something, maybe an issue that some of our handlers are having, and this year we're focusing on refusals, mainly into cafes and restaurants, which is where we find the greatest amount of refusals for our handlers are happening. I think something like up to 25% of our handlers are experiencing a refusal in the past 12 months into one of these venues. So we're calling it Is Inclusion on Your Menu? So we partnered with City of Sydney, who've given us $30,000 to help us roll out an education package to help venues train their staff in how to best welcome our handlers.
We're really aiming to just provide more education and awareness to try and eradicate those barriers that we face each day. As a person living with blindness, at the back of my mind is always never knowing whether I'll be refused entry on the basis of my guide dog, and it's really disappointing that it's still happening today, because these guide dogs are such incredible dogs and they do help reduce so much stress and anxiety that I have with navigating and make it so much more easier for me. So having to face those barriers and actually refused entry it's just really disappointing and disheartening.
Refusals. Now, I've seen a lot of guide dogs being refused into Ubers, taxis. I've even seen one get kicked out of a bus in my area. Is this a legal issue as well?
Yeah, it's 100% illegal. Guide dogs have full legal rights to go to pretty much all public places, including restaurants, cafes, transport, taxis, ride shares. There's a few exceptions, which are some sections of zoos, commercial kitchens and operating theatres. But if you think about it, the average person can't just walk into an operating theatre, so it's understandable why a guide dog can't. But it is 100% illegal, and there are definitely penalties for refusing entry.
I think it is disappointing. I think Karlee mentioned earlier that in this day and age it is still happening despite all the education that we're doing every single year, pushing the message out. These refusals continue to happen. So we recognise that and we're really trying to do something about it. The more we can get the word out, that it makes life difficult for someone who is using a guide dog. So it's discriminatory, it's illegal, and it makes things really difficult for someone and dangerous as well. I mean, Karlee mentioned their ride shares and Ubers. We see a lot of refusals from that, Lima, like you said. And that's dangerous. You can imagine if Karlee's standing there waiting to get picked up at night after a night out with friends and she's by herself and then this Uber decides just to leave her on the side of the road. It's dangerous as well as being really illegal, yeah.
It's not just guide dogs. I mean, I go to the gym. Someone at the gym has a service dog and they sit there while the person does their workout. I think it's a great thing that these dogs are doing, obviously. Do you think it's being policed enough?
I think we definitely need to be reinforcing it a bit more. That's why we're trying to provide as much education as we can to help people understand the roles of these dogs and the life-changing impact that they have. Isla's not just a dog to me, she is my mobility aid, but she gives me that confidence and independence to travel and actually navigate my community safely. And I think that's the big word, it's safety for me. She is providing that for me and allowing me to have that same independence as other people. So when people are refusing entry and if there's no implications of that on them, if they're not getting fined, then it's just going to be an ongoing issue.
It's hard to quantify that question, I think, Lima. Is it getting policed enough? Anecdotally, I'd probably say no, from what we hear. But I know some organisations, without naming who they are stepping things up and really enforcing this law, and we are seeing improvements in that. So things are changing, things are improving, but I think overall the policing of it maybe could be a little bit firmer, I think, yeah, and that would certainly help too. First
step to wanting or getting a guide, like what do you think about, and then who do you call, and take us through the experience of wanting to get a guide dog.
I've always wanted a guide dog and thought that it would benefit me. I actually was lucky to go to a guide dog's experience day when I was younger, so we were able to walk with a guide dog for the first time and feel that sense of freedom that the dog provides. And for me, that really solidified the pathway that I wanted to take, and I really did want to continue down that road. So generally, it's really good to have good orientation and mobility skills. So I was doing a lot of cane training with an orientation and mobility instructor to first learn those skills so that I could travel independently. And then I contacted guide dogs and asked to get a guide dog assessment, and an instructor came and observed me navigating a travel route with my cane, asked me a bunch of questions about what my lifestyle looked like, what I needed in a dog, and then we get put on the waiting list. And from there, they're really just looking for the perfect match. It's really important that the dog and the client match each other, so they're taking into consideration your walking speed, the environment you live in, how active you are, what you do day to day, and also your personality. And then they start looking for a match, and when they find a dog, that's when a guide dog mobility instructor like Ryan would come, bring the dog to the client and start a guide dog mobility program.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty typical journey, Karlee. People will normally be known to us. They'll be working with us, learning how to use a long cane and use their other senses and skills to navigate the environment. And I think it's people like Karlee really want to enhance their mobility and freedom and want to maybe walk a bit faster and freer. and go further. So those people usually come to us and say, hey, what do you think? And we give a lot of information on it, because it's a big step. A guide dog isn't for everybody, but they are pretty specialised and they're hard work. They do take a lot of maintenance and effort to make the partnership work. But yeah, when they work, they're fantastic for people. So that's a pretty typical journey.
Where do you not take a guide dog? For example, I do shows, really loud music, big bass, everything shaking. Where do you think you wouldn't take a guide dog?
Yeah, I think it might change between the clients, but for me personally, if I was going to a loud concert, I would choose to not bring my guide dog and use my cane in that situation. I, at the end of the day, ultimately think of what would be the best for Isla. Will she actually be working in that environment, and is it safe for her? So that's sort of what helps me make a decision when I bring her and when I leave her at home.
I think also it depends on, one question I ask is, will this make your life easier having your dog there, or is it going to be a little bit more difficult having your dog there? And if it's going to make life a little bit difficult, I think leaving the dog at home is a good idea. And if it's going to be stressed, like you're saying, in loud bass, leave the dog at home. Some advice I give sometimes is, can I bring my dog to a concert? I say, what sort of concert is it? If you're going to the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, sure. But if you're going to see Metallica, maybe leave the dog at home. I think if anybody's thinking about it, and I'll say it's not just guide dogs that we do, it's actually a small part of the work we do. Anybody who has any level of vision impairment, there's a good chance we'll be able to help you with something. So we provide orientation mobility training, so that is work with long canes. We have a specialist early intervention team who work with kids to make sure they're developing at a comparable rate to their sighted peers. We have a specialised department who works with brain-based vision loss. So this can be really tricky and really different. So we have a specialist team for that as well. We have occupational therapists, which can help people learn about how to go about their day-to-day business, how to wash their clothes, fold them, identify their clothes, how to cook, and all the rest. So lots of different departments, so it's not just guide dogs. So if you are experiencing vision loss or know somebody who is, I'd really say get in touch with us, guidedogs.com.au, or we have a phone number, 1-800-436-364. Give us a call, start the conversation, and we'll see how we can help you.
What did you think of the International Guide Dogs Day pop-up in Martin Place? What do you think?
Pop-up, great idea. The best idea. I'm so glad I found it on socials, and that's why we're here today.
And it was a great conversation with Karlee and Ryan from Guide Dogs Australia. And Isla was so beautiful, like a golden Labrador or something. I don't know.
Lab.
Yellow lab. I'm not good with dogs. Thanks so much for joining us for the last episode of Where Am I?
Hope you enjoyed us getting lost in the city of Sydney.